Yeah. Good morning, everyone. My name is Wanda Thomas, and with us today on the Lattes and Lenses podcast, we have Stephen Ziegler, Director of Philanthropy over at Mercy Neighborhood Ministries. Steve is also, the co-founder of Starving Artist Prevention. I will have him later in the show discuss what Starving Artist Prevention is, because I think that's his jam, and he's really good at telling his story around that. Steve, thank you for being with us today.
Well, thank you for having me.
Excuse me. Tell us a little bit about yourself before we delve into the questions. Tell us who you are, what you do. One of the reasons why I asked you to come onto the show today is because I really appreciate the passion that you have in both Mercy and developing Starving Artist Prevention. I think you encompass that whole building the side hustle thing while working a 9 to 5. And I don't think a lot of people can do both really well. They're either all into the 9 to 5, and then the side hustle kind of is really disorganized. And I think you have your finger on that pulse really well. Like, you know how to do the 9 to 5 really well, and you're organized there. And then when you leave the office, you really put your heart into, like, this is the time I have, and it has to be organized. And that's what I've really noticed about Starving Artists. Like, you are organized there, you're putting it out there, you're promoting it in the time that you have. And it's rare that, and when I see the promotions, just because I know you, I know that most of them are scheduled posts, and that's what I really want you to talk about today. Sharing that, building the business while working a 9 to 5.
Okay.
So talk to us about that.
I'm glad it appears organized from the outside. A little bit about myself. I was born and raised in Philly, South Philly specifically, and I've been working in nonprofit now for 10 years. So immediately after leaving college at LaSalle, I started in the nonprofit world. I've been at Mercy specifically for almost 4 years now. Starving Artists, same thing. Starving Artists actually started the summer that I started working at Mercy. So summer 2014 is when we did our first show. That balance is interesting that you talk about, because sometimes it's not always scheduled post. It is a lot of stuff that's on the fly. It's just that we've built up so much. Well, is that okay?
No, that's fine. I would never have thought that, though.
The content is all built up, and then we start pushing it out where I find it to be appropriate, and finding the audiences for it. On the Mercy end, I have a strong passion for education and for actually working for an organization where I can see the results of the work that we do, because we're a small organization. I mean, we're under 40 employees, and we've grown significantly over the past three and a half years, probably from, I don't want to talk too much about it, but from a $1 million budget to probably we're getting closer to a $3 million budget over the next year. So that's interesting. And also a great place to be in a community that's one of the untouched areas in Philly, and specifically in North Philly. On the Starving Artist end, I myself, I fancy myself a writer, and that's kind of how this all started. We started with a small variety show at Latage nightclub, just off of South Street. And then that's myself and my business partner, Matt Durkin, who was actually a student when I was working in the first school that I worked in out of college. And we've just kind of grown from there. We really have like a love of stand-up comedy. Matt started out doing stand-up. Now he produces more theater shows at the Center Theater in Norristown. And right now we've been bouncing around to venues in Fairmount and in Center City. We're doing our 20th show on June 2nd, so that's cool. And it's just two guys promoting and producing comedy shows. I mean, that's the basis of it.
Okay. What's the most common reason for people failing or giving up when it comes to side hustles or startup businesses? What do you think?
I think that there's not enough time, number one. I think it's oftentimes difficult to look at the return on investment and be happy about it. You have to be passionate about what you're doing. And for us, I think both of us having a love of the arts makes that possible. I think people give up. Those would be the two reasons. I would say it's time and the financial reason, because it is a risk that you take. There's not always going to be a win, but it's managing that risk. And also the 9 to 5, I think for most people, no matter what they do, if they're passionate about their 9 to 5, it's more than a 9 to 5. So that also doesn't leave much time, for the side hustle.
Okay. What hurdles did you personally face, and how did you overcome them in building this, starting to build this business?
Oh.
Oh, that face.
Yeah. I mean, the biggest hurdle is usually marketing. And it's kind of trying to find our place in social media. Social media is a big help for us, and we don't have a permanent space in the city. So marketing becomes difficult when you're moving from place to place. So anytime we reevaluate or readjust what we're doing, that often comes into play. And I think now is the time to really leverage social media and overcome those hurdles. And also, this Starving Artist has now grown into a management business.
Okay.
Where 2 comedians that we're working with have asked us to manage them. And I feel like that actually could be an avenue that will allow me to focus on my own art without being focused on producing a show, but still being involved with shows.
Okay.
So I went a little off on the hurdle question, but
do you see any specific roadblocks going down that field as a producer?
As a producer?
Promoter.
No, I mean, the promoter producer business, there's always going to be roadblocks. There's always going to be challenges in finding an audience and finding places. On the flip side, there's always people who want to be involved with that business and want to work with you. So it's just a matter of really managing your time and money. On the management side, I'm intrigued by that because the guys that we're working with, Chris Cotton and Brian Isley, are very talented. One has a deal with Comedy Central, and one is putting an album out. So I feel like that's a way to keep my finger on the pulse while also moving up and getting more experience from other promoters and producers who do this on a larger scale.
Excuse me. You mentioned a little bit about your startup, Matt. Having the variety show, and you're coming into your 20th show back in June, and you being a writer, was that your official start or entry into this field? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
And that's what actually compelled you to continue this.
Yeah, it was. I mean, Matt and I both are pulled back a little from performing, but I do stand up once in a while. He does stand up once in a while. He's actually performing at the National Dog Gala in 6 months, dog show gala. But yeah, our passion for that, it was really just a fun little show that we were doing at first. And then he got the space at the theater, and it grew from there. And then we said, you know what, we should develop this into a legitimate business. And the good thing about it is it's something that's constantly developing and can go in several different directions. So.
Okay. A bit of a fun question. What's your favorite word? Mine, I'm going to tell you mine. Mine is approved. Anytime I swipe a credit card or ATM card or debit card and that little machine says approved, I'm in heaven.
I think there's probably 2 that I've used lately. One would be ostentatious, just because I like it, and the word itself is. Usually I'm using it in a negative way. And the other would be conscious.
Okay.
Meaning, and because I think I'm at an age and my generation where everyone's talking about being more mindful. And I think in all areas of where my business really deals, there's a lot of numbers involved, but it's really dealing with people and understanding people and being conscious of people's feelings. And that's why I would say that's my word that I've been using the most.
Okay. Okay. This is a grown-up question. What's your favorite curse word?
Oh, it's the F word.
Okay. All right. So
So many
tell us
variants.
about, I know you have a couple of shows coming up. Share about those.
Well, it's actually 4 shows in one day.
A lot of work.
That's the 20th show.
Okay.
It's at the Proscenium Theater in Center City, which is in the Drake apartment building.
Okay.
It's actually a nonprofit theater. 4 nonprofit theater companies run this theater. We're tying it around Brian Isley's album release.
Okay.
And the show and the album have the same title, which is Laugh or Get Offended. Brian will be involved with all the shows during the day. We have one podcast at 1 in the afternoon. It's called the Drunk Unks Podcast, and that airs every Saturday on Wildfire Radio. So they're going to do a live version of that. 5 o'clock, we're going to have Latisse as the headliner at that show. 7 o'clock, Mike Brooks is the headliner. Mike's a comedy competition winner on WMGK. He's also been a Philly's Funniest finalist, and he himself has an album coming out on June 1st. And then 9 o'clock, we have Shane Gillis, who is a Philly's Funniest winner. This may be actually one of the last shows he does in Philly before he moves to New York, and he just headlined Helium 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
So it's going to be a lot of fun. Every show is going to run about an hour and a half. This is the first time we've done multiple shows in a day. So this is going to be, it's quite the undertaking. So,
I can imagine.
So over the next 2 weeks, I'll really be like promoting it hard. And I say that because we also have Mercy's biggest fundraiser of the year this Wednesday, and you'll be there.
I will be there.
But the shows would be a lot of fun. Our theaters, again, it's the same size. We're dealing with crowds of about 100 to 120 is what we hope to get in for each show. So it's going to be a lot of work, but also a lot of fun. And see a ton of promotion about that online.
Okay. What's your favorite part about when it comes to organizing a show? Promotion, marketing, the actual event itself?
When it's over. No. My favorite part is the show. I think any producer would say this. It's the reaction of the crowd and the fact that they can leave knowing they had a good experience. Because I've had shows where I think people maybe left not having a great experience overall. And those are definitely learning experiences and knowing how to put a lineup together. And that's my favorite part now, is to see people happy and leaving and entertained.
Okay. I think that's about it. I think that's, first of all, the end of the show is like the end of my wedding days. Whenever I am done shooting a wedding, I'm like, the whole process leading up to the planning, the meeting with the bride and the groom, all of that is great. But once I pack up my gear and I'm in the car, I'm like, okay, this is it. But no, I think the actual event itself, the wedding, is great because you get to see everything, all of the planning come together, and exactly. It's really nice. It's really nice to see it all, like I said, cohesive. One more question. 2 more questions I have, because I told you earlier I have my list here, and I have 2 questions here that I want to ask you. What profession other than your own would you attempt?
Filmmaking.
Really?
Mm-hmm. That's what I went to school for.
Oh, okay. And you've never delved into it?
I mean, other than editing and cutting the shows and stuff for commercials and things like that, and like small little projects, I've never taken the risk to do it. That's probably the next
step. Your next step?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If heaven exists, what would you like to hear God say when you arrive at the pearly gates? This is where we're going to end the show, so make it good.
I know. I could go on and on. I could probably give a long sentence, but I would want them to say, like, did a good job.
Okay.
And I always feel, I say this, I don't know how I would put this into what God would say, but I have this thing that I feel like when you're close to death, I feel like if you feel like you've accomplished everything you're going to accomplish, then you probably didn't do much. But if you feel like there's still more to do, you've done a whole lot. That's the way I look at it. That's the way I want to, like, end it.
I like that.
Yeah, that's just I mean, now granted, I want to be satisfied with things at some point. I usually am not, but I always feel like there's something else that can be done to be it better another person's life, better your own life, whatever. And that's the perspective I would want to take. But I don't know if I could put words into God's mouth. I don't know.
Okay.
As long as he doesn't say get out, then I'm
Exactly. That's my take. Listen, I don't need wings. You can give me a push broom and a trash can. Just let me in. I don't need to be that great. Just like I said, just let me in. Let me in the side door. You know. All right. So that was our last question. Before we leave, let everyone know the date and the time of your upcoming show again.
Yep.
So everyone knows, and then your link for tickets.
Yes. So the date is June 2nd. Shows are 1 p.m., 5 p.m., 7, and 9. The link for tickets is logofest.brownpapertickets.com. Also available on starvingartistprevention.com. And they can get a discount if they use the code MADCHRIS, MADCRIS. So I know they're Wanda's friends.
Awesome. Steve, thank you very much for joining us today. It was my pleasure.
Thank
you. This will air this Wednesday. I try to get them out. Yeah. Excuse me. I try to get them out by noon. It will be shared on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, Google, YouTube, all of those really fancy places.
All right.
And we'll share with you as well, okay?
Yeah. Thank you.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.